Hello. Hi. You got a little shot
Hi.
there. You got a little shot there of the lovely Alex Johnston from Leopard Mountain. And thank you so much, for joining me so early in the morning. We're very lucky actually because South African time is only 1 hour ahead.
We're British summertime now, only 1 hour.
Exactly. And it turns out Alex and I come from basically like the same town in England, way back when.
Yes, many moons ago now.
So we shouldn't have too many problems of translation and connection here. So, but it's just it's so lovely to talk to you. And obviously, you're not at Leopard Mountain right now. That is just the beauty of the green screen.
I could be anywhere.
But it is. I mean, it takes me back to when I was at Leopard Mountain. That is so. It is such a very special place. But the reason for talking to you today is we really want to talk about what's going on for you guys right now, and also the incredible work that you've been doing and has been done in the location where you are for such a long time, and also to talk to people about the possibilities of what's going to happen going forward, and how you can stay connected and how you can keep in touch and keep learning how things evolve in South Africa.
Okay, there's a lot there, so remind me if I don't cover all of that.
I tell you what, let's talk about where you are and what you've been doing. Okay, so I actually visited Leopard Mountain a couple of years ago, and I don't know why, because I was looking at South Africa and I remember looking at all these different possibilities, and I'd traveled around the world at this point. And as I said, my top place to go was Africa, but it was too hot for me. So it was kind of like I spent 6 months exploring other parts of the world because it was too hot for me to go to Africa. And I was looking at all these different places. So I was looking at Namibia and Cape Town and lots of other places in Africa. And then I remember I just picked up a magazine and it had an article about Durban. And I just knew, and I was like, right, that's where I'm going. I have to go to Durban. And that was it really. And when I got to Durban, then I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I'd had a very weird safari experience in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Sri Lanka's also got a really, amazing, amazing sort of experiences you can have. But when I went on safari in Sri Lanka, it was incredibly tough on my body. I said it was like a roller coaster, And all the other people who I met, where I was in Sri Lanka, would say to me, well, this is nothing compared to what it's like in Africa. Africa's really tough. And I was like, well, I can't do it, And so when I was looking at it, I was like, well, I can't take the heat. I can't take the jeeps. I don't know if I can do anything in Africa, but I've got to go. And then, so what happened was when I was in Durban and I was looking and I saw Leopard Mountain, I was like, where am I going to stay? What am I going to do? I was like, don't know if I can do this. But the place where you are is, I'm going to try and say it right, is Shwewe in Philose.
So Shishui, just north of Shishui.
I got it.
Don't worry, it took me years to get that.
But it was an amazing history. And we'll talk a little bit more, let Alex talk about the park. And I was like, well, I've got to go to this place. Leopard Mountain looks quite nice. And I just went, yeah, okay, I'm going to go. And I'll let Alex talk about where we are.
Yeah.
And then I'll talk about how it was when I actually got there.
That was. Okay. Yeah, so KwaZulu-Natal, which is our area, is an enviable climatic area. In the summer, it does get quite hot and humid. But obviously at Leopard Mountain, we have air cons and fans to help, and plunge pools to help you cool down in the heat of the day. But like now, so now is the beginning of June, end of May, and it's our winter time. Winter time used in, and it's probably gets down. We're on the coast here, so I live on the coast, and Leopard Mountain is about 2 hours north of me. So from Durban Airport, it takes about 3 hours to get to Leopard Mountain north. So it gets quite chilly in the mornings, but during the day it's mid to late 20s, so a beautiful summer's temperature from the UK. And at night you need a fleece, but it's not too chilly. So that's our winter temperatures. It's humid, so there's not that dryness that you can sometimes get when you're coming to Africa. The dry heat doesn't really occur here, so it's a very, very pleasant temperature. Yes, KwaZulu-Natal is really rich and vibrant in historical reasons. There's dramatic scenery like the Drakensberg, there's the battlefield, so the historical culture there. There's the Zulu culture, which is probably the most famous tribe in Africa. And you're surrounded by that, the vibrancy, the energy throughout your stay. And then of course there's the safari. So as Paul said, up by the Shishlui is historically the safari area, and Leopard Mountain is north of there in their own private game reserve, north of Shishlui, only about half an hour on the road north. Very easy self-drive region to navigate yourself around, but also we can do transfers as well if you're a little bit nervous of traveling by yourself. But it's a stunning private game reserve north of Durban, where for hectares, we usually state in acres, because it's 58,000 acres, which is about 26,000 hectares of beautiful Zulu land, which is our region, bush. So there's these rolling Zulu hills, there's the Lebombo Mountains in the background, that's our border with Mozambique, so it gives you an idea of how north we are. And then we have these fever tree forests, sandstone gorges, and as you can see in my background, I wish I was there, that's the views you get from on top of Leopard Mountain from your room. So it's a very striking landscape, and it's a beautiful spot. So the Manyoni Private Game Reserve was established about 25 years ago through a collaboration of landowners up in the area, and they joined together to protect this region. It was part of the Black Rhino expansion project, so there was funds from the government to protect area for the black rhinos, and Manyoni became part of that, and over the years has grown and grown and grown into this beautiful reserve. Everyone is in agreement, all the landowners are in agreement under the Conservation Trust and with the management of the reserve. So not all of them are commercial entities, there's only 4 commercial entities. And we all traverse on this magnificent reserve and offer you the Big 5 safari. But the reason why we're there is the conservation. So that's what we do, but the reason why we're there is the conservation behind it.
Yeah. And this whole area, the reason I was drawn to it is because it's, it really is a place that kind of a lot of the conservation was born. Because this is
yes. So Shishlui so all the white rhinos in southern Africa, because we've had historically poaching problems throughout southern Africa, or Africa as a whole, or the world for rhinos, but all the rhinos have a genetic link to the herds within the Umfolozi Shishlui Game Reserve. So it's historically been very important in terms of the safari industry, because from there, all the white rhinos have been shared in the last decimation of the rhinos. That was their original home over the years.
And it's often credited saying, this is the place that saved the rhino.
Yes, exactly.
And I just talk about the rhino because I love your t-shirt, but
yeah.
I don't know. We'll talk a little bit more about actually coming to Leopard Mountain, because there's something very interesting about the rhinos in Manyoni as well. But so I must admit, when I booked this and I knew that the lodge was in a private game reserve, I did not know what to expect from that. I didn't know if it was going to be like, feel a bit sort of elitist or anything like that. And I literally, when I drove up and I was on the highway and it was a long drive from Durban, and then I got there and I was at the gate and I was like, okay. And the woman came and she sort of like opened, yes, you are supposed to go in. And she opened the gate and I was like, I don't know what I think about these private game reserves. And I went in the gate and I went, oh, okay. And I just remember driving down this road and it was like, all my dreams have come true. I am in Africa. Like I'm like this one car driving little tiny hire car,
Yeah.
very European tiny hire car.
What do I do if I come across something? Yeah.
Oh, I was like this. I was like, I mean, and the scenery, the landscape, you know, it's like I am in Africa, you know, and I think, you know, almost everywhere in the world suffers from the whole. Everywhere except return suffers from the whole. You know, when you're in a town, there are very generic things. It could be anywhere in the world, but there, I was like, you know, this is about as kind of unique as you can get.
Yeah.
And I remember driving.
And, you know, to be honest, it happened to me 23 years ago. You never forget that first time that you go, wow, I'm really here. Like I can see a view that has nothing man-made, nothing, no fence, no pylon, no, okay, we have, you know, we're still only 3 hours from Durban. So there is, you know, but you definitely get lots of vistas where there is nothing. It is how God made it. And it is just unique and beautiful. So, and you never forget that when you get onto safari and you have that moment, that'll live with you forever.
Yeah, and it's so amazing. And I remember I was driving along, and the next scene was like there was some giraffe, and I was like, like my face. I was like, I'm going to take a picture of my face because I can't stop doing this. You know, it's a giraffe, and then I was driving, and I was trying to find the lodge in this huge, you know, reserve. And I was like, oh, where am I? And I was like, And part of me is like stopping just to look. Part of me is stopping because I'm like, I'm not quite sure if I'm lost yet.
Yeah.
And I remember I stopped and it was like, I was still just kind of like that, this wide-eyed thing. And I turned around and I hadn't heard it. And there was a Leopard Mountain Jeep sitting right behind me. And I think it was Alex who was my,
your guide.
Might be somebody else. But I remember the look was like this. And I turned around and he's sitting there and they're going like this. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, it is, you know, you're here. And they're like, yeah, go that way down there. And I think that's the thing. I when I arrived, I was just in this state of like, for me, like seriously, I get to come here. I get to, and I mean, my lodge was exactly what you see behind Alex there. It's just, but the heart of where you are, you know, you come in and everybody is so warm and friendly, and it's like, you know, it's like having a big hug, you know, when you've been on the road. There's nothing. It's almost like the most ultimate luxury, but like there's nothing fancy.
Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, Mel and her team had just for years, because Mel's been with us for forever. She's our GM, and their attention to detail and not presuming, what's the word? Knowing what you're next expected to do. So helping you get there, as well as just preempting what you might be thinking, what you might be worried about. And just everything is just, all the boxes are ticked. It's really and one of our catchphrases, if you see our website and our videos that we share with everybody, it's just welcome home, because that's what it is. It's the family's home, the Vivia family who built Leopard Mountain, who run it. So it's their home, and they know that it's a very important responsibility that they have, is your safari. So they want you to be part of their family. So that's.
Yeah. And I think, so I remember when I got there, and quite a good one, because I actually had time to put my feet down, you know, for a minute before we were going out on the game drive. And I do remember, and I hope you don't mind me saying that. So I was being shown around this incredible room. I said, "This is the best, most incredible room that And the worst part is you have to get up at we had to get up at 5 because everything was going on, and you're like, I'm getting a wake up call at 5 o'clock in the morning to go on a game drive, and I'm like, in the most beautiful room I've ever been in. I'm like, oh no, it's hard because you actually feel a little bit torn. But at that time, you had there was a bit of an issue with the mice.
Okay.
And it was a bit crazy. And I always remember that so when they're showing me around, and that's what, like, a very matter of fact. And so I got there, and the person showed me around and said, well, look, we've got these mice, so there's a little problem. Have you got any food or anything like that? And just give it to us, and we'll put it, you know, in a store in the kitchen, so that, you know, you won't have any problems, you won't get attacked any mice. And then just shout if you want anything. And I'm one of these people, when I travel, I have like snacks. Because I'm trying to be vegan, so it was all like you know, 2
Nah.
avocados and half a bag of this, and so my stash was just I mean, it's not something you really want to hand over to somebody who manages like a 5-star, 4-star, you know, whatever, you know, million-star place. And I remember kind of handing over this, you know, this I mean, like car treats that I had, and I was like, oh, okay. And I was expecting the look, or you know, and I just remember it's like, okay, we'll take that away. That's, you know, there was no judgment or anything.
Yeah.
And I always find that the thing about like really great places I stay, that there's kind of no difficulty. There's no sort of, you have to be a certain thing to fit in, or you know, you have to do things a certain. I mean, you have to be on time. You have to be on time in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, there's people waiting for you. There's animals waiting for you, not just not the people. There's animals. Yeah.
So anyway, on this, you know, when I went out on the drive, what I would say is, you know, what was so great is I had, you know, I was kind of like that. I was ready for the roller coaster. You know, I'd experienced in Sri Lanka. I was ready for kind of like this to be really challenging, really difficult. And it wasn't at all. It was just like, you know, the Jeep was like, it was the smoothest ride, and I got to sit at the front, and it was like, I mean, it was just, you know, the funny thing is we started really slow. We went out and we saw, it took us quite a while to get to see a rhino. You know, first of all, we were seeing them way over there, and eventually, and so we saw a lot of like birds and small animals. We saw a dung beetle, you know. We saw
important, yes.
And it was like, okay, but we're kind of having quite a quiet sort of drive, and then it was getting dark, and we saw, and the thing I was saying, like, and I go, what is there anything you really want to see? And I was like, you know what, I just want to see, my dream would be to see a big cat, and then we saw cheetah. And it was just kind of like, oh wow, that's it. Everything's complete. I've seen a rhino and I've seen a cheetah. And then we stopped, and we have like, you do this wonderful thing of like the sort of cocktail.
Yes.
Out, and I had vegan snacks. The chef had made me vegan snacks, and we were sitting there, and I was like, this is the life, you know, this is the life. And then we got back in the car to like go back to the lodge, and it was like we'd had this quite quiet time, and it was dark, and then everything just kicked off. And it was like, from then on, we had, you know, and one of the things they say is you shouldn't, you know, you don't really want to see elephants at night, right?
No, yeah.
And of course, we came across loads of elephants, and the sort of headlights, sort of elephants. And it's like Alex goes, okay, we're going to go very slow now. We're going to go very slow. And we were seeing all these amazing, like, small night animals, like, and bush babies and night stars and things like that. Then what happened was we came across a kill.
You're very lucky.
Exactly. And and there were all these hyena.
Beautiful.
I know. And I think you were saying before that the lion, the sound of the lion roaring is nothing like what you see at the beginning of the MGM film. And that experience was really like, I now have a huge respect for the hyena. That I didn't, you know, if you watch a wildlife program, they're always kind of like dragging on behind everybody else.
Yeah.
But when
they're very efficient. Yeah, they're amazing hunters.
Yeah, and up close, they're like, you know, that you would not want to mess with a hyena.
Definitely not.
Yeah, they're like, and so when we came up, and the noises, especially when you're actually in Africa and it's dark and you're seeing and hearing.
Yes.
Whoo-wee.
Yeah.
And then
it gives me goosebumps. You're just telling me. It's brilliant.
You know what? I had this very weird experience because I had actually bought a separate camera. I bought a backup camera with me because I had these moments in my travels where my phone would just like die. And so I had a camera. I had 2 cameras, you know, my phone and camera. And so when this was all happening, I had my phone and it died. And then I had my backup camera and I got that and that died too.
Oh no!
And I was just sitting there thinking, you know what, Pearl? You know, you're a writer. You know, eat this. You know, experience this, and then write about it. You know, but everybody else in the car was recording. You know, everybody else was filming it, and or really not recording the video because you couldn't really see anything. You know, it was very dark. It was pitch black. You know.
Yeah.
And that noise of a hyena in the dark, it will make you wait. It will make
very special. I think just when you're in the dark anyway, all your other senses are on alert. Just that natural human, well, any animal reaction. So to then experience something like that, and you can't see it, and all you can do is hear it. And that's very evocative, that experience. It's quite incredible.
And then we had a leopard up in the tree. You had a leopard in the tree. And again, like, as you say, the sound of an animal, and Alex is going, oh yeah, that's the leopard. But also he was trying to figure out what had we walked into?
What happened? Trying to unravel it. Yeah.
Had the leopard killed the I think, was it kudu?
Okay.
I get confused between the animal and the dance move, because there's a kuduro dance move and there's a
kudu. Okay.
So there you are, and it's like, did this leopard kill something and then the hyena have chased it off?
Yeah. Possibly.
And there was a pregnant hyena as well. So it was a bit like they might have been doing stuff that they wouldn't normally do. Mm-hmm. So it was all like this huge drama, and everybody and this leopard up in the mountain. It was like, wow, that sound is like something I've never heard. That.
Never imagine it. That would be associated with a leopard. Yeah, it's quite.
And it was what I really remember is so Alex was on the radio back to the lodge, because we were already kind of running late because we come across these elephant, and we had, I know it's the weirdest thing, we had a little African hare, a baby hare, that would not get out of
the road.
Yeah, so we were like,
crazy things.
It's like, it's okay, we came across a kill. That was fine. And we were lucky enough, I think in the dark, we were lucky enough to come there a little bit later, so that they had their initial frenzy, whatever. So he's on the radio and he's going, before we even got to this, he's like, you know what, we're late, we're going to get in trouble. And he's calling up and he's going, and the person on the other end was like, where are you? You could have, we've got to be back here in 20 minutes, because, dinner's here, everything's ready. And he was like, well, we've just come across a kill, and there's like 8 hyena, and there's a leopard up here, and there's this and there's that. And then there was this silence. And the person on the other end goes, enjoy.
Yeah.
Take your time. So, no, the animals are the most important thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's just, I think that's the thing is, even talking about it now, I'm like, wow, that was such a, and we came back the next morning, and they were still there, seeing them in daylight, it was a whole other experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, you see them in daylight and you think, you know what, they're still pretty formidable.
Yeah.
The daylight, there's like, and they weren't leaving. They were just like, we don't care about food.
There's a lot of food there in a kudu. They're not going anywhere.
It's like dinner for like 18 hours or something they were eating on that thing. So, it's just, I think the thing is like you very often see like, what you call the big five or something like that. And you don't necessarily see all these other amazing stories of other animals that are so precious.
Yeah, and it's what it's one of those wonderful surprises, so that you go, there's the big five is such a marketing point, and that's all it is. They are wonderful creatures, all of them, and they're beautifully and exciting things to see. But sometimes it's the other guys, and like you say, the dung ball rolling, or the bird life that you hadn't even considered, or the owls and the water monitors, or hippos, or there's a whole myriad of animals out there, and and especially like you say, in the dark, there's a whole different ball game. There's different behavior. There's different animals you wouldn't even see on your normal game drive. So there's so much, and it is always. The most photographed animal in safari is a giraffe. So everyone, because it's such an iconic animal, you don't find anything like it anywhere else in the world. So there's just so many wonderful, wonderful things to see. And the guides, of course, they want to show you a sighting like that is remarkable. And I can't promise that for everybody that comes to but it is.
I don't think everybody would want it because I mean, I loved it, and everyone in the Jeep was like, "Wow," you know. But I imagine some people would be like, "That would be a bit too much, really, for some people."
And often, if you have been fortunate, or, you know, enough to see something like that, the reality is actually very different to your National Geographic thing that you're used to seeing. It's because all your senses are then involved, and it is a gruesome event, and it's so it's not for everybody, but it is. And it's not, and it doesn't happen for our guests every day. So, but we will, I mean, our sightings are incredible. So we do see fantastic stuff. We have a wonderful a couple of, I think there's 3 prides of lions on the reserve, and we have many others. But the conservation, which is what I mentioned before, we're all about. There's the most successful cheetah. It's not a breeding, it's a population. A cheetah population is the most successful in a private reserve in South Africa. So we've had to actually relocate cheetah because they've been so successful on the reserve. We do have leopard. They are pretty, you're very lucky. They are pretty secretive, but we do see them. At the moment, we've got a lot of animals in camp. So we have Inyala. Mel sent me videos yesterday. We've got Inyala all over camp. We've got a genet, because obviously we don't have any guests at camp at the moment because we're in phase 4 lockdown. So no one can travel within the province. But we have a genet that's decided that he's going to come out all time. So a genet is a little stripy cat that's usually you only see at night. They like to catch all sorts of things, so from bugs to scorpions to eggs, and he comes out all day, and he'll just come around the lodge. Alex actually took a picture of him in the entrance in the middle of the day, so he's out snooping around to see what he can find. So there's some fun stuff going along in the lodge when we don't have guests. So it's interesting times.
You just reminded me. I have to just share one more experience from when I stayed, because I remember when I finally got to, there's 2 things actually. I remember because Alex had to walk me to my lodge, you know, because
yeah.
And I remember just saying, "God, I'm so tired," you know. "Oh, and I've got this hammock, you know, on the behind you." I was like, "Oh, I might just lie here in the hammock and have a snooze." And he goes, "No, don't do that." He said, "Because in Africa there have been episodes which say it has happened that a leopard has attacked someone sleeping in a hammock." You know? So he said, "Well, you know, no, don't go out on the deck," you know. And he told me this story, and then I went to bed, and I went like that. And the next thing I knew, I was wide awake because there was a noise.
Yeah.
And I was like, "There's an animal, you know, there's an animal." And I remember just thinking, "I hope it's a mouse. I hope it's a mouse." You know? When you ever dream that you hope there's a mouse in your bedroom.
Yes.
And then I heard, and I was like, "There's something on the deck." And I had a dipping pool.
Yes.
Right. So there's something, and you've got these huge windows as well. So, and I remember getting up, and I was like, find the glasses, put them on, and creep. I'm doing like my own mini safari, like in the bedroom at night, you know.
Very brave.
Oh, I didn't go out. I was inside, you know, looking out the windows. You know, you're trying to see, and it's like, do you put the light on? Do you, you know? Yeah. And there was something, you know, at the pool for drinking. And I looked, and it was like, it's in Nyala. It's an antelope. It's an antelope, yeah. Yeah. And I was like, and as part of me is like, I wish it was a leopard. The other part of me is like, thank God it's not a leopard. So I always remember that. It was like, I mean, it is such a thrill.
Yes.
Thrill. You know? But obviously, one of the things we chatted about a little bit before we started speaking on camera was about, you know, conservation. And one of the things I've been talking to other people in the travel industry around the world is that most of us believe that this is the time we move into a new period of travel and tourism, which is consciousness and being conscious of the impact of our travel.
Yeah.
And just to sort of kind of like focus in on this, I know I'm not a conservation expert. You know, Alex was going to talk a bit more about this. She knows. But I am an expert in, say, massage and healing and spas. And what happened was the night before I came to Leopard Mountain, I actually looked around and I found another hotel that was quite near to Durban. And I was like, oh, there's this traditional, authentic African massage, and I'm going to go and have that, which I did. And unfortunately, for me, it was just really the wrong thing, because it was a very, it was kind of like a factory line tourist experience, you know, of, we've built these, I think they're called a boma, you know, they built these sort of little lodges, which are kind of like what you have at Leopard Mountain, but they were real kind of, sort of like a Disney kind of version, you know, and it was like, it's a little bit like, with no disrespect, a Native American hotel casino in America.
Yes.
You know, because the hotel did have, I get a bit blurry in my mind, but you know, it was that kind of thing. Let's give you some big cocktails. Let's get you to, you know, we got some artwork here. We got this, but there's almost like a factory line experience of, this is where the hen nights go. This is where the stag parties go. You know, we've got a bit of screening around here. We're gonna, like, you know, you lie down, get your massage, get this, and the whole time I was just like, I want to go. This, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this.
Yeah.
And the two other things that you guys did for me was you arranged a lovely massage at your spa there. And the other thing, but in case I forget, you also organised my next accommodation in St. Lucia to go see the hippos. And it was one of those things where I was talking to somebody and they go, well, where are you going next? And I said, well, I might go here, and they went, no. we're gonna build that. And it was like, I think you got me like the last guest room in this town, you know, and it was right by the hippos. So it was really good. And it was it's that kind of, you're our guest, even though you're leaving, you know, we want to make sure you get on the right road and go the right place. But the massage, you know, for me, I've had traditional massage all around the world, and I know what's what. And when I walked into your spa, you know, and it was just that thing, walk in and there's a lady who knows what she is, probably what you would call in Africa sangoma, a healer. And I walked in, and all I remember was, you know, literally this woman could, the atmosphere, the vibe and everything, and sit down, have a little drink, and then we'll take you through. And I think I just lay down on the bed, and I think she just like went like that, ding, and it was just like,
that's all they did.
I mean, whatever she did in that room was, you know, I went to a different, I just kind of relaxed. And also with that, we were looking out on that scenery. Exactly. This is an African massage. This is, you know, this is the real deal.
Well, this is the other side of Africa, the healing, like you say, the healing qualities of nature, and just incorporating that into the spa treatments. You actually can't get away from it. You know, they'll do massages on your deck. You can go to the specific spa, which is just next to all the chalets. And and they use products which are locally based. They're from our healing plants here in Africa. And the techniques, I know some of them are quite normal spa techniques, but they also incorporate other, I know they use a stick on me when I went for one. So one of those knob kerries, that's one of the fighting sticks the Zulus used. So they would use the knob kerry to really work into the muscles. So when the spa movement moved into the safari industry quite a long time ago, I'm from one of those, you know, safari geeks. So it's all about going on safari. But you forget that actually people are coming on holiday, and they're coming from their busy lives and their stressful cities, and the healing part of a spa treatment is so important on your holiday, to really relax. And even though your Jeep rides are less bumpy than you thought, it's still on sandy roads, there's still bumps, and it's an early start, and so there's all those other things, and a spa treatment really helps you just take you to another level on your safari. So I'm glad you enjoyed that too.
Well, for me, like, you know, the way I always see, I think being English, you know, we have a weird relationship with spa and massage. But generally, whenever I've travelled anywhere in the world, I feel like if I haven't had a massage, I haven't truly experienced the culture. You know, because it's such a big part of culture around the world. You know, and
Yes.
I've been very lucky to have some very unique experiences. But what I love about what you guys do is, you know, you make it so easy, you know, for people to come, because you bring all the best, you know, into, you know, you're in this incredible location, and you bring all the other good stuff that you can into that.
I think we were surprised because we only introduced the spa about 4 years ago, and it was quite a big decision for the lodge. But it was we're looking back and seeing how popular it is. We should have done it years ago. It really brings such a beautiful dimension to your whole day, your itinerary. So it's,
the thing you know, from my experiences, I spend a lot of time trying to convince people to go and get massages. And I would say 80 to 90% of all of the treatments I've ever had anywhere in the world have been excellent. But unfortunately, there's always a small, you know, a bit like this other treatment I had, that just isn't authentic, and it isn't, you know, it doesn't respect that you're actually treating somebody. And unfortunately, people have one bad experience and they run away, you know, which absolutely. So I think when you have a massage, you know, and that kind of, you know, you're taking your clothes off, you know, it's such a trust that you put on other people. And I think that's the thing when you come somewhere like where you guys are, that people come and it's like, you know, you stay somewhere in somebody's house, or, you know, in an environment, so that's a level of trust. You get into a Jeep with somebody, that's a level of trust. And so I think the thing is when somebody comes to you, it's such a, you're so well taken care of, that it's an obvious thing of like, hey, I can trust these people to give me that kind of experience, that I wouldn't trust every lodge, I wouldn't trust every hotel, especially if somebody's had a poor experience in the past. So for me, like, you know, say for example, I mean, I love my experience in Sri Lanka, it was amazing, but it was a big jump for me to come and do it again, because it had been really, you know, the terrain there was very, very rough. So it was really great, you know, to come to you guys and actually be supported. But let's go to that, talking about trust. Let's talk about this conservation thing, because you guys you've got so much to share and so much to tell about this. I'm gonna chip in with the two things that I want to make sure we mention is we were talking about, because I've seen on Instagram you've been releasing some pangolin, and you said there's an amazing project. So what we're going to do is make sure I put a link to that, because there's quite a lot of information about what you're doing. Pangolin is an animal that more people are learning about at the moment for obvious reasons. So I'll put the details in there, so people can follow up on that. And also, if you're following Leopard Mountain on Instagram and looking at the website and things like that, you're going to see some great, cute pictures, and in the video as well that I'll put a link to as well, you're going to see some lovely things about the pangolin. But the other thing I want to say is, there's a thing that you guys have been doing, or doing when I was there, with the rhino and the rhino horn, which is actually removing the rhino horn, isn't it?
Yes.
So I would love to know how that's been working for you in terms of conservation.
Okay, so the decision was made, I think it was about 4 years ago, to dehorn our rhino population. And this was in direct reaction to the poaching war that we are under. The reserve itself spend hundreds of thousands of rand a month on security for the whole reserve. And in particular, the rhino are, as hopefully you all know, under threat. There are hundreds of rhinos being poached a year, and the population is being decimated. So the decision was made to dehorn our rhinos, to take them out of try and reduce their risk factor It started actually further south in the province when when another reserve dehorned their rhino, and therefore it just shifts the focus to rhino. So in fact, most of the rhinos within KwaZulu-Natal, Zululand as a whole, have had their horns taken off. There's too many in Shishlui, so it's they haven't done it, but they are under constant, well, we all are under constant threat by the poachers. So so they started dehorning their rhino, and significantly the security issues were better. So I think because however word gets around, bush telegraph, because they're not as valuable, but there were still breaches of security, there were still problems, they still do their patrols all the time to safeguard our rhinos. But we haven't lost a rhino, touch wood, in 3 years. So it's amazing. And we also, not that it's for public use, but we do have the rhino orphanage somewhere on our reserve as well. So for the rhinos that do get poached within the province, we have a safe haven for their babies. So they get transported, hopefully successfully, but they're in a very vulnerable position when they're so young. And they get transported to our orphanage and then hand reared and put with the other rhinos to be rhinos. And they've had their first successful relocation of these rhinos babies since it all began. But that's obviously not for human contact because they will be released into the wild. But it's all part of the conservation project within the Manyoni. And the pangolin, so this is a relatively new project. Again, we can't have access to it because they're so heavily endangered. It took me 23 years in Africa to find a pangolin. They are incredibly rare. They are secretive, they are beautiful, they look like a scaly little anteater. If you don't know what they are, you'll see that in the video. But when you see one, you realize how come they've been so, because they just sit and they curl up. Anyone can pick them up and take them away. They don't become aggressive, they don't attack, they don't do anything but curl up in their protective natural way. And they're just then easy to pick up, put in a bag and take away for their medicinal purposes, for whatever they are. So they're incredibly rare anyway. And then they are critically endangered. But they have a new project, and there's some fantastic pangolin conservation groups, and we have a baby or a youngster, and it is being reared within the reserve in a private location, and it goes out on walks. They take it out because they usually they go out at dusk, but this one goes out slightly earlier and goes for its little walk. And it's pretty much guarded 24 hours a day because it needs to be protected. And yeah, so it's a wonderful project. It will be released when it's fully developed, and will be kept track of because we need to protect them.
Wow. It's kind of interesting you say that, and I think sometimes I know myself, and sometimes we think of like we can be a bit hedgehog.
Yes.
Quickly when we're I always say when we kind of like threatened, we kind of go a bit like that prickly.
Yes.
I think the pangolin is almost like that, but it hasn't got anything except scales.
No. And when you hear about the hauls of the 5 tons of pangolin scales that were found at some shipyard or airport, it's like, it just blows my mind how many pangolins that could be. How many we've lost in our environment because it's just the scales. And like I say, it's taken me decades to see one in the wild. So it's a massive, massive loss. It's just horrendous. And it's, very scary, their numbers.
I think the thing is, one of the things we talked about before, and it's a bit like when we first sort of got on the phone to each other, we were chatting a little bit about what life is like for us at the moment, lockdown in the UK and in South Africa. and there are parallels and there are differences. And I think sometimes we all have moments, where we feel overwhelmed by what we are facing in terms of that one threat, So we say, very often we have to just look at, like, what's the one step, what's the one thing that we do, and obviously, we say that, and then it's kind of like, for you guys, you've been doing this conservation for such a long time that it's not just one thing, but you kind of have to do what you can, as you can do it, so it's kind of like, I guess the thing is, if you're watching this, you're probably interested in Africa, you're probably interested in conservation, and in a normal time, I would and have said, just go there, just get on a plane and go there. I would say that.
Only, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, the reasons for that are, and I would like to think that I've been a conscious tourist for quite a long time, that, when I visited, and the vibe and everything there is that this is a kind of a way of conservation that, although it's kind of got walls, although you've kind of got these walls up there, and I think that's for a lot of us at the moment, although we've got these walls up there, this place is very interlinked. It's very interlinked with the local community, with the population of this much larger area. And this is something you were talking about before, wasn't it, Alex?
Yes. So it's been, conservation can't stand alone. It has to work with the community and partners involved. And the Manyoni have been very deliberate in working together as a collaboration with all the shareholders and all the owners and whatever, and channeling that conservation efforts, not just in the animals, which is why we're there, but in our community around us as well. So the families that we support through their work at the lodge, through the communities in the area, it's rural Zululand, so it's an incredibly poor area in terms of economic business. So we support the local communities that would then benefit from being on the buffer zone of a reserve. So you're preserving an area for conservation, and you're preserving the benefits of having that there through the community as well. So you have to work with the community, and so through the Zululand Conservation Trust, that's how they establish creches, they establish food. At this time, they've been doing a food scheme for hundreds of people within the community. They have clinics, the schools. So there's an incredibly important role for us to play as a reserve in our communities around, and it's important to remember at times like this that many people haven't been able to come on their lifetime safari, but people are still reliant on us for their everyday, for their food, for their work, for their existence. And that's the challenge we have at the moment, is to keep that going, and to people can't travel yet, so we can't, we are still funding, but we just have to project the possibilities in the future, and that's what we're trying to do, bring more people here in the future to help support.
Definitely. So for those of you watching, you want to know more about, what your next steps might be. So the first thing is, you can just follow Leopard Mountain on Instagram, because you have some great
yeah, they're very active.
Exactly. Email them, drop a line, say, put them on your mailing list. I love getting the updates about what the leopards are doing when you have leopard sightings, because it's kind of a big deal to get a leopard sighting. And to know what's going on, and just look, just stay in touch, and we were talking, you've changed a lot of your policies and about the way people can book and things like that, to try and make it so that people can start dreaming again, start of going there, and I think it's just wonderful to reach out and to connect and to make friends, right now. There is nothing stopping us, you know, like here, I don't think we've met before, unless you were at the lodge when I was there, you know.
No, probably not, but yeah.
But, you know, we can make friends. There is nothing that stops you from making friends and making dreams. I wouldn't say, maybe it's a little bit early for us to make plans, but it's never too early to start dreaming and to
No, absolutely.
and start looking at what you can do and what the magic that is already there, that's there right now.
Yeah, we really encourage it. This is a wonderful platform to start talking to people. There's no commitment. You can just talk to us about how we operate, so you can be assured that we don't know how this whole situation with Corona is going to draw. We don't know when the vaccine's coming. We don't know, but we're making plans already to make the lodge safer. So we have things in place already to enable guests to visit us. Of course, first stop is our local guests, and then of course the internationals are more than welcome back, probably only next year, 2021, we understand, but we're already looking at our operations, and but we don't want it not to become home. We still need to make sure that you feel like you're coming home, but we don't want a barrier of your dreaming. We want you to be assured that should it be another, for example, if you get to the airport and you have a temperature over 38 degrees and it's only flu, but they can't let you on the plane, that you will, because you have had that instance, there'll be no cancellation charge. So there's just, don't stop dreaming. Talk to us. We always usually get our guest details on arrival, but if we can get in touch with you beforehand and allay your fears and know that you can trust us, then we can help you with your planning. We can help you with any information you need about KwaZulu-Natal or South Africa, or what you're wanting to do in addition to your safari. We have friends and neighbors that are all around us, from the beach to the St. Lucia with the hippos, to the battlefields, to everywhere like that. And we can put you in touch or do it for you if you want, or just put you in touch and advise the best way to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the moment, I mean, as somebody who's interested in conservation and travel, and all kinds of things, I get so many messages at the moment, and so many mixed messages about travel, about tourism, about conservation. And you know, it's kind of tricky because there's a sort of and I will say this as well, I get hit because I'm on a lot of, you know, mung bean, meditation, spiritual, you know, whatever the internet says I am, you know, I get the adverts that pop up, and I get the people that, you know, I go on YouTube, it tells me that I'm interested in this, you know, as
yes, exactly, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, I get hit with a lot of messages about, you know, oh, this virus is gonna kind of make, you know, we're getting rid of pollution and this and that and the other, and everything's gonna be rosy and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of denial, babe. I mean, I'm sorry, I think that's we have a thing, there's a thing that's called in like fashion, it's called, you know, and a lot of other businesses, which is called greenwashing. You know, which is where somebody tries to sell you a pair of jeans or a t-shirt, and it's kind of like, oh, this is organic cotton, or we give 5% of our profits to some school, or we, you know, and the same thing happens in conservation as well. You get a, oh, we do this, or and they're not saying the full story. You know, they're not saying, but it's made in a factory in Bangladesh where we're not paying the workers. You know, and my experience when I, you know, in terms of tourism, in terms of fashion, in terms of anything like that, when I have the conversation with people about what they're actually doing and how they're doing it, you see very quickly who the good guys are. You do. Yeah. And for me, it's like, I've been so impressed. I keep coming back to fashion. I keep coming back to all the sort of top designers in England who've been just sitting at a machine and stitching scrubs and making PPE, you know. And you see very, very clearly who the good guys are when you start having that conversation. So I say, start having a conversation with Leopard Mountain, you know, because they have got a great vibe there. And just be very wary of all the mixed messages that we're getting. I mean, to talk about tourism in the UK, you know, and we've had just a little heat wave for a couple of days, and we've seen a sort of rush to the beaches, which really goes against everything that, you know, we've kind of been sacrificing for, both here in England, in South Africa, and around the world. And it is tough when, you know, you feel like that you've been sacrificing and putting energy into doing something, and then you see everyone just heading down to the beach and having a booze up on the beach. Mm. And for you guys in conservation, for what you've been doing, you know, you've been doing this for years. Mm. It's not, you know, you make it look easy. You make it look luxurious. You make it look good. But I also know that there's a lot of, you know, planning, a lot of sweating, a lot of probably figuring out numbers on balance sheets to keep the work that you're doing going. And that's not just been for the last couple of weeks or the couple of months. No,
it's always, yes, conservation is very much a buzzword in the safari industry. So it's a similar situation as what you're saying with your greenwashing. And there is absolutely going to be a lot of greenwashing in our industry because it's going to be so desperate. But when it's been your drive for 23 years, when it's been your passion behind the founders for all that time, when it's been the focus and a quarter of your turnover goes into the reserve and the management and the conservation projects, and it just, you know, there's just a solidness there that it doesn't, people can say whatever else they're doing, that's wonderful if they're doing it, but when you know from the core that that's exactly why Leopard Mountain is there, it becomes it's always been part of our narrative, and that's it's nothing new for us. It just becomes challenging. It just becomes challenging when at times like this.
Totally. And I think there's always have the conversation, always have the conversation. And if you've got questions, ask them, but ask somebody who knows, you know, ask the experts, you know, don't listen.
Mouth. Exactly.
I mean, this thing is, you know, there's a lot of pie in the sky, you know, about everything at the moment. And just remember to be, one of my great teachers, Domino, is the fifth agreement from the 4 agreements is be skeptical, but learn to listen. Yeah, and I really wish that people could come and listen to all this sitting in a Jeep in Africa with you, you know, because it's much easier to hear, it's much easier to understand when you're there. Yeah. But I guess one of the, if we can say if there's a benefit to the current moment for a lot of people, is that we have time to sit down and to plan. You know, and I didn't plan a lot of my stuff. I just went and I went, woo, I don't know, just, and for me that worked, because it was a strange journey, you know. And one of the advantages I suppose we have, if we have any kind of advantage, is to sit down and to really research, to really look into, and to just, I say, get to know the places you want to visit. Because then when you go, it's great, because then you're like, you're seeing friends, you're so friendly anyway. But then it's a kind of, a lot of people enjoy that thing of the build up, you know, like Christmas, you build up to that whole thing of
lots of fun.
Yeah, exactly. But also that means that you get the time to make sure that you're going somewhere that really is what it says it is. You know, get the chance to you know, to talk to more people, to spend more time on TripAdvisor, you know, reading all the review. Yeah, and I think these TripAdvisor is great. I will tell you that, especially if you're going a lot of places like Southeast Asia, definitely always check TripAdvisor, because some of the advertising is not quite correct.
I mean, everybody always puts, it's natural for you always to put your best picture, your best room, your best in your brochure or your website. It's always the best of you. But TripAdvisor, absolutely, and we're very proud of our TripAdvisor reports. And And you know what's for the times, maybe the mice or whatever, that it's natural, it's human, but we'll always respond. One thing I'm always very impressed with is Ryan, who's one of the brothers who actually lives on the reserve at the lodge. Every single response. So we have our own guest feedback, and every TripAdvisor goes across his desk. He reads everything, he responds to everything, and he makes sure that he knows how the guest is feeling.
Yeah, yeah, and I think sometimes it's just, you know, sometimes when you go and stay places, it's really good to know the truth, because it's just an assumption sometimes that you go somewhere and you assume things are going to be a certain way, and you get that it's different. So, for example, somebody who thinks they're going on a grain drive and then realizes they have to get up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. may not be a very happy camper.
But I always try and say, if it is 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, but this is what your sun rises right in front of you. So right there, that's where the sun comes up. It's the best early morning coffee you'll ever have, because it actually takes you out of your, I'm not a morning person. So I just quietly have my coffee, but it puts me in a good mood when the sun comes up.
Oh, it's so hard. I just want to stay here all day and talk to you. Maybe you can send me that picture and I'll put it on my screen and just look.
There we go.
Actually, do you know what I will do? I might just go back and look at my photos. But I actually, one of the other things I should mention, and I didn't think I told you this, is I actually wrote, because I write books, and I wrote about staying with you. And it's actually in 2 of my books. It's in a book called Reconciliation.
Okay.
Which obviously I came to South Africa to understand, you know, because there's a big part there. And it's also in a smaller book about Durban.
Okay.
And this came out last year. And when it came out, it was actually the #1 release for South Africa.
Oh.
It talks about you guys and about that hyena moment.
Yes.
And it was actually, I just got my little note here, because it was #2 adventure travel in France, and top 20 in US and UK for safari travel in South Africa. And I remember when it came up and it was like I was in the like top 20 for safari travel, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, and to be honest, I was so blown away, because a part of me had dreamed about safari for, you know, decades. And a part of me was still like, I went on safari. Like, apart from writing a book about it, apart from being in a chart, I was like, wow, I still can't believe I actually went on this amazing Africa. I can't believe I went on safari. It was just such a dream. And it's so, you know, I think the thing is, we have these dreams, we have these ideas, and in life very often we get used to doing something and it's never as good, you know, it's never as good as you think it's going to be. It's never as magical. It's never as
it lives up. Yeah.
And just, well, you know what I'm going to say. It's like, it absolutely, I mean, it's beyond my dreams, you know, it really, and the whole, you know, the whole of South Africa, really, almost everything in South Africa I was blown away. And it was so much more, you know, so much more in every way than I expected. And even like St. Lucia with the hippos, oh my goodness. We had, again, another crazy day there. I mean, we saw stuff that they're like, I said, I really should have, all my books should be called This Never Happens.
Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe the reason for me why I kind of like everything happens quite last minute for me. And I think part of that is it's almost like I'm drawn to kind of where the magic's going to be.
Go fly by the seat of your pants. That's another really good way to do it.
Yeah, but I think, you know, for a lot of people, this will be something they have to gear up to, and that will take them time. And that's great, because you can start right now. You can start right now to investigate. You can start right now to research. You can start right now to enjoy all these amazing videos that you've got. It's just beautiful. I
mean, we often say there's people that come to tick the thing off their bucket list. That's, you know, everyone's got a bucket list, and Africa Safari is often on there. So they're either coming to tick it, but mostly they come to tick it, but they don't realize they actually fall in love with Africa. It gets under their skin. They might even get khaki fever like me and end up, this is now my home. So it just, you never know where it's going to lead you.
Absolutely. And I mean, come on, it's not a bad place to end up. It really
No.
is. It's a really amazing place.
We're very lucky, very fortunate.
I could stay here with you, but I know you've got a busy day. Thank you so much. I'm going to put loads of information in here so people can find you. It will be right for you.
Come and talk to us.
Oh,
Come and,
and I mean, I think just to have a little reality check, you know, it's the thing to remember is, so in the UK, you know, I think we were saying that we seem to be about the same, what we would call stage 4, whether it's the same stage 4 or not. It's hard to say. It's a bit like time zones. You
can't buy wine, so I don't think we are the same.
Sorry? You can't?
We can't buy wine or alcohol or anything. So
really? Now that's a very it's so you know, we were just talking, it's funny because when we first started talking about this, you know, about what was going on with lockdown, and it was kind of, I think we were both a bit stressed, and now we've talked about the safari in Africa. We can talk about it in a much more relaxed way.
It doesn't matter.
So I hope this video is doing the same thing for anybody watching it, that you can feel like, you know, that you've had a lovely little break, you know. Okay. But coming back to the lockdown, you know, you guys are, as you say, you have a much more rigid experience in terms of, you say you're just now allowed to exercise for a few hours a day.
Yes, we're allowed in the morning. We're allowed to go out between 6 and 9. We have a curfew of 6 o'clock in the evening. As I said, you can't buy cigarettes or alcohol. Many of the industries aren't back at work. They're not allowed to go back to work. But there is a lot of lobbying, and there's a big drive to start business again, because Africa cannot survive like Europe on a total lockdown. So we think that next month we're going into phase 3, and particularly, hopefully, those areas that aren't in such a high risk hotspot. And then we can just generate economy again. We know it's going to be a long road for the tourism industry. It's not going to happen next phase, but at least everyone else can get back into some kind of normality with the proper restrictions and safety precautions. But we need to work again. Africa needs to work.
Yeah, and as you say, your first customers are going to be your local customers. They're going to be the people, you know. And it's interesting because, you know, one of the things I love about being able to talk to people around the world is seeing, you know, I think just having that thing of like appreciating what we have in each area, because, you know, I was talking to somebody in Australia, and they couldn't buy flowers. So flowers were seen as a non-essential, and so they couldn't buy flowers. So they were painting flowers. They were doing paintings and drawings of flowers. And I think sometimes we, you know, in the UK, we really kind of ignorant of how much we have been allowed to kind of continue it. So, for example, we pretty much have had alcohol on tap. You know, the pubs closed, but the supermarkets were still open.
Yeah,
we've still been able to buy things like flowers. And there's a lot of, it's a very strange thing. There's a lot of cultural differences between the way we've approached it. And it just makes me, I suppose the thing is, when I heard the thing about the flowers, the good thing for me was when I next time went into a supermarket, I got my grandma a big bunch of flowers, you know, and I know she's actually got some in her garden, but I just kind of thought, oh yeah, I'll do that because I can do it here. Almost like I'm doing it for the Australians. I know it sounds weird. I'm not doing it for the Australians, but it just made me appreciate the fact I could buy a bunch of flowers. And then when I took over with the shopping to my grandma, she was so, you know, they really lit her up. They really lit her up. So sometimes we, you know, it's nice to look outside and say kind of, well, actually, let me appreciate what I do have here and what I can share and what I can give. And I should say, really huge thank you, Alex, for.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I think that I'm hoping that this sharing this Africa, that where you are and what you've got with us in the UK and anyone around the world is going to help make their day a little bit easier and give them some food for thought. Yes, stop dreaming. Thank you so much, and you take good care. And I'm just going to say goodbye.